Captain Elias Ward adjusted the controls of the landing module as it descended through the atmosphere of the distant planet. The sky was a deep violet, streaked with gold, and the clouds glowed faintly, like distant stars trapped in mist. Elias had been to many worlds before, but there was something different about this one. The sensors showed life forms, but none that matched the patterns of anything human scientists had catalogued. It felt alive, not in the mechanical or biological sense, but in a way that whispered intelligence. The landing pad was uneven, covered in soft moss-like plants that glimmered when the module's lights passed over them. Elias stepped out slowly, his boots sinking slightly into the surface. He inhaled deeply, his mask filtering the alien air, which smelled faintly sweet and metallic at the same time. "This is going to be an interesting one," he murmured to himself. He activated the scanning device strapped to his arm, watching the readouts flicker and spike. The flora of the planet seemed to pulse in response to his presence, as if it were aware of him. Elias crouched and examined a small plant that had leaves shaped like delicate fingers. He reached out, and the leaves shifted slightly away from his touch, recoiling with a subtle intelligence. Elias smiled. "Clever," he said quietly, noting the sensitivity in his log. Suddenly, movement caught his eye. A flash of blue darted between the glowing trees, faster than anything he had seen on this planet. He froze, holding his breath. The shape stopped at a distance, hovering just behind a cluster of plants. It was small, no taller than a human child, with shimmering skin that reflected the violet light in soft ripples. Her eyes were large, luminous, and curious, and for a moment, Elias felt as if they could see through him. "Ooh. Who's there?" he called gently, careful not to alarm whatever life form was watching him. The figure tilted her head and stepped out from behind the foliage. She had delicate features, but there was strength in her posture. She opened her mouth, and a clear, firm voice answered, "I'm not your pet." Elias blinked. I didn't... He stopped, realizing that words were meaningless until trust was earned. The alien girl, despite her warning, was not running away. She studied him, head tilted, lips pursed. There was intelligence in her eyes and curiosity. "I'm Elias Ward," he said carefully, lowering his scanner. "I come in peace."
"I'm here to explore." The alien made a soft noise, almost a hum of amusement. You humans always say that.
"What does peace even mean?" Elias laughed quietly, the sound echoing softly in the violet air. "It means we don't want to hurt anyone. We just want to learn." For a moment, the alien girl said nothing. She circled him slowly, observing. Elias noticed her hands, slender, almost crystalline, and the way her skin shifted color slightly, like ripples in water. Her name was not known, but he wanted to know it. "Do you have a name?" he asked. "I don't belong to anyone," she said finally. "So I don't see why I should tell you." Elias nodded. He understood that first rule. She was independent, not something to be owned or controlled. And yet, despite her words, she didn't retreat. She was standing only a few feet away, her eyes bright with interest. For hours, Elias observed her. She followed him as he explored the clearing, mimicking his movements in ways that were not threatening, but playful. If he crouched to examine a plant, she crouched as well. If he touched a glowing rock, she did the same. Each gesture carried a small spark of understanding, as if she was learning from him, just as much as he was learning from her. At one point, she darted toward a small stream, crouching at its edge. Her reflection shimmered, and Elias noticed that her skin responded to the water, colors shifting like a living rainbow. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes, and Elias felt a warmth spread through him. This planet, this life, was unlike anything he had encountered. It was not hostile. It was intelligent, aware, and playful. He decided to sit down on a large rock near the stream, hoping to show that he meant no harm. The alien girl watched him cautiously, then, to his shock, stepped closer, and without warning, curled up in his lap. Elias froze, unsure how to react. His first instinct was to pull away, to assert control, but he remembered the lessons he had learned in his career. Trust was not commanded, trust was given. "You're comfortable?" he said softly. The alien girl tilted her head, her eyes wide. There was no fear in her, only a quiet decision to remain where she was. She shifted slightly, adjusting herself as if testing boundaries, but she did not move away. Elias realized that this small act, curling up in his lap, was not submission. It was curiosity, a willingness to connect on her own terms. His heart swelled with a mixture of amazement and respect. "I understand," he said quietly. "You are not my pet. I promise we can be friends." She made a small noise that Elias took as acknowledgement. Then, without warning, she rolled to the side and darted off toward the trees. Elias watched her go, feeling an unusual tug in his chest. He didn't know if it was concern or fascination, but he knew he wanted to understand her, to learn more about this extraordinary being. As night fell, the sky turned darker, and the glowing flora lit up in beautiful patterns, as if the planet itself were celebrating their encounter. Elias set up a small shelter for himself, curious to see if she would return, and return she did, hopping gracefully from one luminous branch to another, keeping her distance but watching him as he worked. Over the next few days, Elias and the alien girl, whom he had tentatively begun to call Lumi, for the soft glow of her skin, developed a rhythm. They explored the terrain together. She was clever beyond his expectations, solving problems and noticing patterns in the environment that he had missed entirely. One morning, she led him to a grove of towering crystalline plants that refracted the sunlight into brilliant rainbows. Elias marveled at the formations, but Lumi was already moving, testing the strength of a crystal stalk, nudging it to see if it would bend. "Be careful," Elias warned, though he couldn't help smiling at her playful behavior. She looked at him with wide, unrepentant eyes, as if to say, "What's life without a little curiosity?" In turn, Elias showed her small, human inventions. A folding scanner, a portable light, a communicator. She touched each item carefully, tilting her head, mimicking his movements, learning quickly. He realized that intelligence, both human and alien, was amplified when they worked together. The bond between them grew, subtle but unmistakable. Elias never forced Lumi to do anything, and she never relied on him completely. Yet she trusted him enough to stay near, enough to curl up in his lap at unexpected moments, enough to explore and learn alongside him. Each day, the lines between species blurred slightly, replaced by respect, curiosity, and a sense of partnership. One evening, as Elias sat by a gently glowing pool, Lumi approached silently. He felt her small weight settle in his lap once more, her head resting lightly against him. "You don't belong to me," he said softly. She hummed, as if answering. "And I don't belong to you. But we understand each other." She blinked slowly, eyes reflecting the starlight, and Elias felt a deep sense of wonder. Here, on a world untouched by human civilization, with a being so different yet so intelligent, he realized something important. Humanity's greatest strength was not domination, not power, not conquest. It was connection, understanding, and respect. And perhaps, just perhaps, trust given freely could lead to discoveries far beyond technology or science. Night deepened. The glowing plants pulsed softly, illuminating their small, shared space. Elias and Lumi sat together, quiet but connected, each aware of the other's presence. The alien girl was not a pet, not a possession. She was a companion, a puzzle, and a teacher. And in that moment, Elias understood that the adventure of this planet and the adventure of their connection had only just begun. As sleep approached, Elias made a final note in his log. First contact is more than observation. It is recognition. It is learning. It is break, and sometimes it is a quiet moment with an alien who chooses to curl up in your lap. He looked down at Lumi, who blinked up at him, eyes glowing faintly in the night. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we explore together again." She hummed softly in response, and Elias knew she would be there, on her own terms, curious, clever, and independent. And for the first time in his career, he felt like he wasn't just a human exploring a planet. He was part of something larger, something alive, and it was beginning with her. The planet whispered around them, alive with color and light, and under the violet sky, a human and an alien, equals in curiosity and trust, prepared for the journey that lay ahead. The morning sunlight filtered through the glowing trees, casting patterns of gold and violet across the soft moss that covered the ground. Captain Elias Ward stretched, feeling the gentle hum of the planet beneath him. Lumi was already awake, perched on a low branch above the small shelter he had built, her luminous eyes tracking him with sharp curiosity. Elias smiled. "Good morning, Lumi." She tilted her head, letting a faint ripple of her glowing skin spread like waves across her body. She made a soft hum, which Elias took as her version of a greeting. She leaped from the branch effortlessly and landed lightly on the ground, moving toward him without hesitation, though maintaining a small, respectful distance. Today's plan was simple: explore the deeper parts of the forest near the crystalline grove. Elias had noted unusual readings the previous day, fluctuating energy patterns that didn't match any known life form or mineral composition. He packed the small scanner into his satchel, double-checked his tools, and motioned for Lumi to follow. She didn't need direction. She followed closely, her steps light, almost floating above the moss. The forest was alive in ways that continued to astonish Elias. Plants shifted and glimmered, as if sensing movement. Small creatures, translucent and delicate, moved like living lanterns. Lumi paused at one of these creatures, extending a hand slowly. The creature pulsed with a soft light and floated up gently, circling her before darting away. Lumi's eyes sparkled, and she made a quiet laugh, a sound that reminded Elias of wind chimes and a soft breeze. "You understand them better than I do," Elias said quietly. Lumi looked at him, blinking slowly, as if acknowledging his observation but not needing words to respond. Her attention was drawn to the forest path ahead, where the trees grew taller and the air shimmered slightly with heat. As they moved, Elias noticed that Lumi seemed to test the environment constantly. She touched rocks, tapped trees, and even experimented with the streams, making small waves that reflected the sunlight into dazzling patterns. Elias admired her curiosity. Humans often feared the unknown, but she embraced it. "Lumi," he said, "we need to be careful. Some of these readings could be dangerous." She looked at him, eyes wide, and then tilted her head. She seemed to understand the word danger in the tone he used, though she did not appear afraid. Instead, she paused for a moment, then led the way forward. Elias followed, trusting her instincts as much as his own. The readings became stronger as they entered a clearing filled with tall, crystalline structures. The crystals were translucent, stretching high above their heads, reflecting light in shifting patterns that dazzled the eyes. Elias scanned the area, noting the unusual energy flows. Lumi danced between the structures, examining them with delicate touches. When she touched a crystal, it hummed softly, vibrating in response to her skin. Elias realized that the planet itself was responsive, almost sentient in the way it interacted with her. "Do you feel that?" he asked, holding out his hand toward a smaller crystal. Lumi nodded, leaning closer to him. Together they experimented carefully, touching the crystals in different ways. Each touch produced a new sound, a vibration, or a small change in light. Elias felt a thrill of discovery. This was not just a planet. It was a living puzzle, and Lumi was his guide. Hours passed as they explored, communicating without words. Lumi's gestures, her expressions, even the changes in her glowing skin taught Elias more about the planet than any instrument could. He realized that their partnership was powerful. Human logic and alien intuition, working together, could uncover secrets neither could solve alone. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Elias froze, scanning the horizon. Lumi crouched, her skin darkening slightly, signaling caution. The crystals vibrated in response, producing a low hum that echoed through the clearing. Elias raised his scanner and saw energy spikes increasing rapidly, unlike anything he had recorded before. "Lumi, we need to move," he shouted. She darted forward, agile and quick, but the tremor grew stronger. Trees shook, and a faint wind picked up, carrying glowing particles that stung the eyes. Elias grabbed her hand instinctively, but she stopped, shaking her head. "No, watch. Learn," she seemed to say without words. The tremor was brief but intense. When it subsided, Elias realized that part of the clearing had changed. The crystals now formed a pattern, a network of lines that connected to a central structure, a crystal tower taller than the trees, pulsing with energy. Lumi approached it carefully, tapping it lightly. The pulse slowed slightly, as if acknowledging her touch. This is incredible," Elias whispered. "It's like the planet is alive, and you can communicate with it." Lumi glanced at him, blinking, then returned her attention to the tower. She pressed her hand to it again, and a soft hum filled the clearing. Small crystals along the ground vibrated in harmony. Elias realized the significance. The planet was not just a habitat. It was a networked intelligence, a living system, and Lumi had a unique connection to it. Her independence, her curiosity, and her sensitivity were keys to understanding the planet's secrets. He spent the rest of the afternoon recording data and observing her interactions. Lumi was patient, precise, and playful, showing him how the crystals responded to subtle touches and movements. At one point, she leapt onto his shoulder, her small weight light, and guided his hand to a crystal that had remained dormant until then. When he touched it, a soft wave of light spread through the clearing, filling them both with warmth and wonder. As the day drew to a close, Elias and Lumi returned to the small shelter he had built. He sat on the soft moss, exhausted but exhilarated. Lumi, after darting around the clearing one last time, curled up in his lap again, a small weight of trust and connection. He felt her pulse, her soft warmth, and smiled. "You're not my pet, I know," he said softly, "but I'm grateful you trust me enough to share this with me." She hummed in response, and Elias realized that trust was not something demanded. It was given freely, in small gestures and quiet choices. Lumi had chosen him as a companion, not as a master. That night, as he reviewed the day's data, Elias reflected on what he had learned. DA. Humanity often sought to conquer or control. They measured intelligence, power, and progress by dominance. But here, on a planet that breathed and reacted, and with an alien being who was clever, independent, and fearless, he understood a new truth. Real strength came from curiosity, respect, and cooperation. Lumi slept lightly beside him, her glow dimmed but still present, like a soft heartbeat of the planet. Elias watched her, thinking about the challenges ahead. Tomorrow they would explore deeper, discover more, and face whatever this living world had in store for them. And he was not afraid. He had a companion unlike any other, and together they could navigate the wonders and dangers of this world. The first part of the day had shown him the beauty of patience and observation. The second part, the storm that had revealed the central crystal tower, had shown him the power of partnership. Elias felt a deep connection to Lumi. Not ownership, not control, but genuine respect and friendship. And in that connection, he saw a reflection of humanity's potential. to thrive not by dominance, but by empathy and understanding. He knew that the real adventure was just beginning. Lumi stirred in his lap, blinking up at him with glowing eyes. Elias reached out to gently touch her hand. She grasped it lightly, a small spark of warmth running through him. They were two beings from different worlds, yet here they were, discovering together, learning together, trusting each other. And that was more extraordinary than any technology, any discovery, or any conquest Elias had ever known. The forest whispered around them, alive with the hum of energy from the crystals, the sway of the trees, and the soft calls of creatures hidden in the shadows. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, listening, understanding that this planet was not simply a place to explore. It was a teacher, and Lumi was his guide. He opened his eyes and looked at her. She blinked slowly, luminous skin shimmering softly, as if saying, "We have so much to discover. And we will together." The bond was quiet, but profound. Elias realized that in this vast universe, connections like these, between human and alien, curiosity and intelligence, respect and trust, were rare and precious, and he intended to nurture it, to see what wonders could emerge from a partnership built on understanding, not control. As night fell, the glowing trees lit up the forest in soft waves of light. Elias and Lumi sat together, side by side, ready for whatever the planet would reveal next. Each moment was a lesson, each gesture a discovery, and each interaction a step closer to understanding the beauty and intelligence of life beyond humanity. For the first time in his career, Elias did not feel like an explorer conquering a new world. He felt like a student, learning from a teacher who spoke without words, teaching him the most important lesson of all. Curiosity, respect, and trust could bridge the gap between species and uncover wonders beyond imagination. He smiled down at Lumi, who curled up more comfortably in his lap. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we go further." She hummed softly in response, a quiet promise of partnership and discovery. And Elias knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, equal, curious, and ready for the adventures that lay ahead. The morning air was cool and quiet, and the soft violet light of the sun filtered through the towering crystalline trees. Captain Elias Ward had never seen a place so alive yet peaceful. The hum of the planet seemed to pulse beneath his feet, and Lumi moved beside him like a shadow of light, her glowing skin shifting gently with each step. Today they were venturing deeper into the forest than ever before. Elias had mapped only a fraction of the terrain, but the readings he had gathered showed something remarkable. A network of energy veins beneath the surface, connected to the central crystal tower they had discovered the day before. He didn't know what the energy was, only that it pulsed with intelligence, and Lumi's responses indicated that she could sense it far more clearly than he could. As they moved, Elias noticed her behavior changing. She darted forward, paused, and then darted back, always returning to him. It was as if she was both guiding and protecting him, showing a cautious understanding that this part of the forest was different. Elias trusted her instincts. She had never led him wrong. They entered a narrow valley, the ground uneven and covered in shimmering moss. Elias carefully stepped over roots and low-hanging branches. Lumi leapt effortlessly from one crystal to another, seemingly weightless, and paused on a small ledge to observe him. He smiled. She was teaching him a lesson without speaking, to observe, to adapt, to respect the environment. Then the ground trembled beneath them. It was subtle at first, just a faint vibration, but it grew quickly. Elias froze, scanning the area. The crystals along the valley walls began to hum and vibrate in response. Lumi crouched low, her skin darkening slightly, signaling caution. "They're reacting," Elias murmured. "Something is happening underground." The tremor grew stronger. Rocks tumbled from the valley walls, and Elias realized they needed to find shelter quickly. He reached for Lumi's hand, but she shook her head. Her eyes focused on the energy flowing through the crystals. It was clear she was not afraid, only alert. The valley began to shift. Large segments of the crystal walls started to move slowly, almost like breathing. Elias watched, fascinated and cautious. He had never seen a planet act like this, and he realized that their every move was being observed by the environment itself. Suddenly, a section of the ground gave way, revealing a glowing chasm filled with pulsing energy. Elias took a careful step back, but Lumi didn't hesitate. She moved to the edge and reached out toward the energy with her hand. The energy pulsed in response, not aggressively, but in a rhythm that seemed to communicate. "Be careful," Elias warned, though he knew she could handle herself. She glanced at him briefly, her eyes reflecting the energy below, then returned her attention to the chasm. Elias observed closely, realizing that Lumi was communicating with the planet, understanding its patterns and rhythms. Her independence, her intelligence, and her sensitivity allowed her to interact with the environment in ways he could not. He was amazed. The energy pulsed stronger, and small rock fragments floated toward the edges of the chasm. Elias realized they needed to move quickly. He grabbed his scanner and began taking readings, trying to understand the patterns, while Lumi continued her careful observation. Together, they started mapping the energy flows, combining human technology with alien intuition. Suddenly, a surge of energy shot up from the chasm. Elias stumbled, but Lumi was ready. She leapt toward him, steadying him with a firm grip, and then curled around his arm in a protective stance. The surge passed, leaving a faint glow across the valley, and Elias realized how much he relied on her guidance. "Thank you," he said quietly. Holding her hand, she blinked slowly, acknowledging him, but her focus was already back on the crystals and the energy flows. Elias realized that trust was not about ownership. It was about partnership. She trusted him to act, and he trusted her to lead. They spent hours navigating the shifting valley, working together to avoid hazards and map the energy network. Lumi showed him hidden paths, places where the crystals formed natural bridges, and subtle patterns in the moss that indicated safe footing. Elias in turn used his tools to stabilize small sections of the path, creating markers for future exploration. As the day went on, the valley began to calm. The energy pulses slowed, and the crystals stopped shifting as actively. Elias and Lumi paused on a high ledge overlooking the valley, taking a moment to rest. Lumi curled up in his lap, not as a pet, but as a companion, her warmth and soft glow comforting him after the intense hours of observation. "You were incredible," Elias whispered. "I don't know if I could have managed this without you." Lumi hummed softly, her eyes reflecting his. She had chosen to stay close, not out of fear, but out of trust. Elias understood that their bond had deepened, forged in the challenges of the living planet. As they rested, Elias noticed subtle patterns in the crystals below. There were lines, almost like a map, converging on the central crystal tower. He realized that this was more than a network of energy. It was a communication system, a living structure that could respond to intelligence. Lumi's connection to it allowed them to interpret its rhythms, and together they began to understand its purpose. "This planet, it's teaching us," Elias said quietly. "And you're showing me how to learn." Lumi blinked slowly, as if agreeing, then shifted slightly, pointing toward a narrow passage leading deeper into the valley. Elias followed her lead, realizing that the journey was far from over. They moved carefully through the passage, the walls glowing softly with energy. The patterns in the crystals became more complex, and Elias used his scanner to record every detail. Lumi guided him, demonstrating how subtle gestures could influence the energy, creating safe paths and revealing hidden areas. At one point, they reached a small chamber filled with crystals that pulsed in harmony. Lumi stepped into the center, her skin glowing brightly, and the crystals responded, forming a pattern that Elias could recognize as a map of the surrounding area. He marveled at the synergy, human observation, alien intuition, and the planet's intelligence working together. "Together," he said softly, looking at Lumi. She hummed, her small hand resting lightly on his arm. He realized that the adventure of this planet was not just about exploration, it was about connection. Humanity had always sought to conquer and control, but here, in this living world, the greatest discoveries came from respect, understanding, and collaboration. As the day faded into night, the valley was bathed in soft violet light. The crystals pulsed gently, creating patterns that reminded Elias of constellations in the night sky. Lumi curled up beside him, her glow dim but steady, and Elias felt a profound sense of wonder. They had faced the challenges of the valley together, survived the surges of energy, and discovered the hidden intelligence of the planet. Elias realized that the real test was not the hazards, but the partnership they had formed. Trust, respect, and curiosity had guided them, and that was far more powerful than any weapon or tool. The night was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the crystals and the occasional glow of floating creatures. Elias and Lumi sat together, side by side, understanding each other without words. They had faced the first real challenge of the planet, and their bond had strengthened. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring," Elias whispered, watching the patterns of light shift across the valley. Lumi shifted slightly, her eyes reflecting the glow, and Elias felt a deep sense of reassurance. They were not alone. They had each other, and together they could face whatever the planet revealed next. He made a note in his log. The planet responds to intelligence and trust. Partnership with Lumi has allowed me to navigate challenges I could not have faced alone. Humanity's strength is not just in tools or knowledge, but in connection, curiosity, and respect. Lumi stirred, blinking up at him, her glow soft but steady. Elias reached out, brushing a strand of her shimmering hair from her face. She leaned into his touch, a quiet acknowledgement of their bond. In that moment, he knew that this adventure was far bigger than exploration. It was a lesson in understanding, trust, and the beauty of life beyond human experience. The stars above shone faintly through the glowing canopy, and Elias felt a sense of peace he had never known in his travels. They had faced the valley's challenges together, and the first step of true partnership had been taken. Lumi curled up closer, her warmth and presence a reminder that trust was a living thing, nurtured through shared experiences and mutual respect. As he drifted into a light sleep, Elias thought of the day ahead. The crystal tower, the energy networks, and the living planet held more secrets yet to be discovered. And he was not afraid, because he had a companion unlike any other, independent, clever, and trusting enough to share the journey with him. Together they had learned that true strength came from connection. The valley had tested them, but they had emerged stronger, not through dominance or control, but through understanding, observation, and collaboration. The adventure was far from over, and Elias knew that the challenges to come would only deepen the bond they had formed. Lumi's soft hum filled the quiet night, and Elias whispered, "Tomorrow, we go further." She blinked slowly in response, a promise that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The valley, alive and watching, seemed to settle into a gentle rhythm, as if acknowledging their success. And under the soft violet sky, amidst the glowing crystals and the pulsing energy of the planet, a human and an alien sat side by side, ready to explore, discover, and trust each other through the mysteries that awaited them. The first light of the violet dawn filtered through the towering crystals of the valley, painting the walls in shifting patterns of gold and purple. Captain Elias Ward sat quietly on a soft patch of glowing moss, scanning the area with his instruments. Lumi was already awake, perched lightly on a nearby crystal, her luminous skin softly pulsing like the heartbeat of the planet itself. "Ready?" Elias asked, though he already knew the answer. Lumi tilted her head, her eyes sparkling, and let out a soft hum that seemed to say, "Always." Today was the day they would reach the central crystal tower. The energy patterns they had been tracking for days converged there, forming a network that Elias could sense was vital. He had studied the readings, but the data alone could not explain the way the planet responded to Lumi. He needed her guidance. Together, they moved through the valley, stepping carefully over moss and crystalline roots. The air was alive with gentle hums of energy, resonating through the ground and into their bodies. Lumi led the way, her small form gliding effortlessly over obstacles, pausing only to point out subtle shifts in the energy lines that Elias would have missed. As they approached the central tower, the energy pulses grew stronger, forming a soft, rhythmic vibration that seemed almost like a heartbeat. Elias felt it in his chest, in his hands, in every nerve. The tower itself was enormous, its crystalline surface reflecting light in patterns that dazzled and shifted with each movement. This is incredible," Elias whispered, stepping closer. Lumi nodded, circling the base of the tower as if inspecting it for weaknesses or clues. Her glow intensified as she touched the surface, and the tower responded, sending ripples of energy outwards that traveled along the ground and into the surrounding crystals. Elias activated his scanner, recording every detail, but he realized that the readings alone could not capture what was happening. The tower responded to Lumi in ways that defied explanation. Subtle changes, patterns, rhythms. Elias watched her, understanding that she was the key to unlocking the secrets of this living structure. "Let's see what it wants," Elias said quietly, though he knew he was speaking more to himself than to Lumi. She blinked slowly and reached out her hand, pressing it against the tower. The crystals around them pulsed in harmony, forming a soft wave that spread outward. Elias stepped closer, resting a hand beside hers, and felt the energy flow into him. It was like nothing he had ever experienced. The tower seemed to recognize him, not as a human to conquer, but as a companion, an observer, a partner. The energy flowed through the ground, through the crystals, through his body, and into his mind. Images flickered, plans, networks, hidden patterns of light and energy throughout the planet. He realized that the planet itself was alive, sentient, and capable of communication. Lumi hummed softly, her globe bright and steady. Elias focused, letting the energy guide him, following the patterns she indicated. Together, they traced lines of power through the surrounding crystals, connecting nodes that had remained hidden for millennia. The energy pulsed, building, converging, until the tower itself began to resonate in perfect harmony with them. Suddenly, a beam of light shot upward from the tower, stretching into the violet sky. The surrounding crystals responded, sending waves of illumination through the valley. Elias shielded his eyes, but Lumi stayed calm, her hand steady against the tower. The light revealed something astonishing. Beneath the surface, the planet's energy network formed a lattice, a living map that connected every part of the valley, every crystal, and every pulse of energy. "This is a power source," Elias whispered, awe in his voice. "But not just power. It's a communication network, a way for the planet to share knowledge, energy, and information." Lumi nodded, as if confirming his realization. The full scale of the discovery struck him. Humanity had searched the stars for resources, for technology, for knowledge. But here was something that combined all three: a living system that could provide energy, insight, and understanding if approached with care and respect. And it had chosen to respond to them because of trust and cooperation, not dominance. As the energy pulses subsided, Elias felt a calm settle over the valley. Lumi remained at the base of the tower, her glow dimmed but steady, a quiet reminder of the partnership that had made this moment possible. Elias knelt beside her, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. "We did this together," he said softly. She blinked slowly, her eyes shining, a subtle acknowledgement that it was true. For hours they explored the patterns revealed by the energy pulses, mapping safe paths, learning the rhythms of the tower, and discovering hidden chambers filled with smaller crystals. Each one responded uniquely to their touch, revealing more of the planet's secrets. Elias realized that the discoveries were endless, and yet, what mattered most was the bond he had formed with Lumi. "This planet," he murmured, "it doesn't need us to control it. It wants us to learn, to connect, to respect it. Lumi hummed softly in agreement. Elias smiled, watching her shift slightly, her small weight settling in his lap once more. Not as a pet, not as a possession, but as a companion, a teacher, and a friend. As night fell, the valley glowed softly with the energy of the crystals, painting patterns in the sky that mirrored constellations Elias had seen from space. He realized that the planet itself was teaching them, guiding them, rewarding their curiosity and respect with knowledge and understanding. Lumi curled up more comfortably, her glow warming him, and he felt a sense of peace he had never experienced on any other world. "You know," he said quietly, "humanity could learn a lot from this. We think strength comes from force or control, but the real power, the real strength, comes from understanding, trust, and partnership." Lumi blinked slowly, tilting her head, and Elias laughed softly. "You already knew that, didn't you?" She hummed, a small ripple of light traveling across her skin. Over the next few days, Elias and Lumi worked together to stabilize sections of the energy network. He used human tools and technology to support the structure, while Lumi guided him, showing where subtle touches and gestures could influence the flow of energy. The process was delicate, requiring patience, observation, and collaboration. But with each success, the valley responded with greater harmony, the crystals glowing more brightly, the energy pulses flowing more smoothly. One afternoon, they reached a chamber at the very center of the tower. The air was thick with energy, but it was not dangerous. Instead, it was alive, resonant, and aware. Lumi placed her hand on the central crystal, and Elias followed, feeling the flow of energy travel through him. Images flickered again, showing connections between the valley and other areas of the planet. Elias realized that this system could provide sustainable energy and knowledge for human colonies across distant worlds, if approached with care and respect. "This is more than a discovery," Elias whispered. "It's a gift." Lumi blinked, her eyes glowing softly, and Elias understood her silent agreement. The gift was conditional on respect, trust, and partnership, not exploitation. As they worked through the evening, Lumi and Elias developed a rhythm that was both efficient and intuitive. He adjusted tools, she guided movements, and together they unlocked hidden chambers and pathways that had remained dormant for centuries. The energy network responded to their cooperation, glowing brighter, pulsing stronger, and revealing patterns that seemed to anticipate their needs. Finally, as the first light of a new day approached, Elias and Lumi stood at the top of the tower, looking out across the valley. The crystals shimmered in 1,000 colors, the energy pulses flowing in harmony with the planet itself. Elias felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not for himself, but for what they had achieved together. Humanity had found knowledge, energy, and understanding, but only because they approached with respect and trust. Lumi curled up in his lap one last time, soft and warm, her glow steady and comforting. Elias gently stroked her hair, feeling the bond between them as strong as ever. "We've done it," he said quietly. "Together." She hummed softly, leaning closer, and Elias realized that their partnership was more than discovery. It was friendship, trust, and mutual respect. He turned his gaze back to the valley, imagining the possibilities. Humanity could harness the energy safely, learn from the patterns, and explore the planet further, but only if they remembered the lessons he had learned here. Strength was not in domination nor in control, but in cooperation, understanding, and curiosity. The planet pulsed beneath them, alive and aware, and Elias felt a deep connection to it. Lumi rested her head against his arm, her glow dimming but still present, a heartbeat of trust and partnership. He realized that the true gift of this world was not the energy or the crystals, but the lesson it offered. That life, intelligence, and understanding could flourish when respect and curiosity guided the way. As they descended the tower and returned to the valley floor, Elias knew that this was only the beginning. There were more secrets to discover, more lessons to learn, and more adventures to share with Lumi. but for now he was content. They had unlocked the heart of the planet, discovered its rhythms, and formed a partnership that transcended species. Night fell once more, and the valley glowed softly with the energy of the crystals. Elias and Lumi sat together side by side, gazing at the patterns in the sky. They had faced challenges, explored mysteries, and discovered wonders, all through trust, cooperation, and curiosity. Elias whispered softly, "Tomorrow, we continue, together." Lumi hummed in response, a quiet affirmation that whatever lay ahead, they would face it side by side. The planet pulsed gently around them, alive, aware, and welcoming. And for the first time, Elias felt that humanity's greatest discoveries were not in conquering worlds, but in understanding them, and in forging bonds with those who shared the journey. Under the soft violet sky, amidst the glowing crystals and the living pulse of the planet, a human and an alien sat together, equals in curiosity, trust, and friendship. The adventure of exploration had led them to understanding, and in that understanding lay the greatest triumph of all: the power of partnership, the joy of discovery, and the undeniable strength of the human spirit when guided by respect and empathy. And with Lumi curled comfortably in his lap, Elias knew that they were ready for whatever the universe might send next. The valley was quiet in the early morning light, the soft violet sun glinting off the crystal formations like scattered jewels. Captain Elias Ward stretched, feeling the familiar hum of the planet beneath his boots. Lumi had been awake for hours, exploring the edges of the clearing, her glowing skin reflecting the shimmering crystals as she darted gracefully from one formation to another. Elias smiled at her. "I'm going to try something today," he said. Lumi paused, tilting her head. He reached for his scanner and a small portable analyzer, the tools he had used over the past days to map the energy network of the central tower. "We've seen how this planet responds to your touch," he continued. "I want to see if we can share what we've learned with other humans without harming anything here." Lumi's glow brightened faintly, and she stepped closer as if approving of his idea. Elias realized again that the planet's trust had not been given lightly. Lumi had allowed him to be part of her world, not as a master or visitor, but as a partner. They set out toward the central crystal tower. Along the way, Elias collected samples and scanned the smaller energy nodes they had discovered in previous days. Lumi guided him, pointing with subtle gestures to places where the energy responded more strongly to touch. Each time, Elias adjusted his tools carefully, matching her movements, observing, and learning. When they reached the tower, the pulses of energy were steady, almost rhythmic. Elias knelt beside the central crystal, placing his analyzer carefully against the surface. The device began to record the energy flow, but it was clear that the numbers alone could not capture the full picture. Lumi placed her hand beside his, her glow intensifying as the crystals responded to their combined presence. Elias felt the energy surge through him again, but this time it was different. He was not just observing, he was interacting, influencing, and learning in harmony with Lumi. The crystals pulsed, reflecting their combined focus, and Elias realized that the planet was teaching him not just about energy patterns, but about balance, partnership, and understanding. They spent hours working together, documenting pathways, mapping energy flows, and noting subtle patterns in the crystal's responses. Lumi demonstrated small techniques, a touch here, a gesture there, a slight shift of weight on the ground. Each movement had a purpose, guiding the energy without forcing it. Elias learned quickly, mimicking her movements and adding human precision with his instruments. As the day progressed, they discovered a hidden chamber at the base of the tower. It was filled with small crystalline nodes, each pulsing faintly with energy. Elias knelt to examine them, scanning and mapping each one carefully. Lumi touched one of the nodes lightly, and it responded with a ripple of light that traveled to the other nodes. The chamber was a network, smaller than the central tower, but just as alive and responsive. "This is amazing," Elias said softly. "The planet has layers, networks within networks, and you can feel them all. Lumi hummed softly, as if confirming his words. Elias realized again that human curiosity alone could not have unlocked this. It required her intuition, her sensitivity, and her willingness to guide without commanding. Suddenly, the chamber's nodes pulsed in unison, brighter than before. Elias watched in awe as a pattern emerged, forming a map of the energy networks extending beyond the valley. It was as if the planet wanted to share its knowledge with them, to reward their respect and understanding. Lumi placed her hand gently on his arm, guiding him to the center node. Elias touched it alongside her, and the energy surged through him, filling him with warmth and clarity. He saw visions of distant lands, other crystal formations, and energy pathways that could be studied and shared safely. Humanity could benefit from this planet's resources without taking or harming, if they followed the lessons he had learned here: curiosity, respect, trust, and partnership with life itself. After a long day of exploration, Elias and Lumi rested outside the chamber. The crystals around them glowed softly, bathing the valley in gentle waves of light. Lumi curled up in his lap, as she often did, her small warmth and soft glow comforting him. Elias watched her, thinking about how far they had come. She had taught him patience, observation, and the power of trust.
"You know," Elias said quietly, "I think this planet has shown me more than just energy patterns. It's shown me how humans can work with life rather than against it,
and how we can learn without controlling." Lumi blinked slowly, her glow pulsing faintly, as if agreeing. The next day they returned to the energy nodes they had previously mapped. Elias experimented with the analyzer, adjusting it to record subtle responses. Lumi guided him, pointing out nodes that were especially responsive or that showed unusual rhythms. Each interaction was a lesson, and Elias felt his understanding deepening. He was not just recording data. He was learning to interact with life in a new way, guided by the trust of his alien companion and the living planet itself. As they worked, Elias realized that the planet's energy network could provide far more than power. It could teach, communicate, and even coordinate growth. By connecting with it through Lumi, humans could expand knowledge and technology in harmony with life, rather than imposing dominance. At one point, a subtle tremor ran through the valley, smaller than the challenges they had faced before. Elias froze, scanning the ground. Lumi crouched beside him, her glow dimming slightly in concentration. She gestured toward the pattern in the crystals, showing him how to stabilize the energy with gentle movements and careful positioning. Together they balanced the flow, and the valley settled again, glowing softly in response. "Every time we work together, I learn more, not just about the planet, but about us, humans, and how we can connect with life beyond our own world." Lumi hummed softly, her glow brightening in agreement. That evening, they returned to the central tower, climbing carefully to the top. The view was breathtaking. The valley stretched in every direction, a tapestry of glowing moss, towering crystals, and pulsing energy veins. Elias stood beside Lumi, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. "We've unlocked so much already," he said quietly. "But I think the planet is showing us that learning never ends. And we don't have to rush or force it. We just need to observe, understand, and respect." Lumi curled up comfortably at his feet, her glow dim but steady. Elias sat down beside her, feeling the warmth and the quiet presence that had become a constant comfort over the past days. The planet pulsed gently beneath them, alive and aware, as if acknowledging the bond they had formed. Over the following weeks, Elias and Lumi continued to explore and map the energy networks, each day revealing new patterns and hidden nodes. Elias learned to anticipate the planet's responses, guided by Lumi's intuition. He realized that their partnership had become a delicate dance, each movement influencing the energy, each gesture communicating respect and understanding. Through these explorations, Elias also came to understand that the lessons extended beyond this planet. Humanity could reach other worlds, discover life, and learn from it, without exploitation, without destruction. The strength of humans lay not in domination, but in curiosity, empathy, and collaboration. Lumi had shown him this truth, and he knew it would guide every decision he made from now on. One night, as the stars glittered above the glowing valley, Elias looked down at Lumi, who had curled up in his lap once more. He stroked her hair gently, feeling the quiet rhythm of her breathing and the soft warmth of her presence. "We've done something extraordinary," he whispered. "We've learned how to connect, to trust, and to explore without harm, and we've done it together."
Lumi hummed softly, blinking her luminous eyes.
Elias felt a deep sense of accomplishment, not just for the discoveries, but for the bond they had formed. She was not his companion in the sense of ownership, but a friend, a teacher, and a partner. Together they had uncovered the secrets of a living planet and shown that humanity's greatest strength was not conquest, but understanding. In the days that followed, Elias sent encrypted messages to human colonies, carefully sharing knowledge of the planet's energy network. The data was precise, respectful, and safe, designed to guide future explorers without harming the environment. He emphasized cooperation, patience, and observation, knowing that the lessons he had learned with Lumi were far more important than technology alone. Lumi continued to explore beside him, her curiosity undimmed, her trust unwavering. Elias realized that the adventure was ongoing, and that each day brought new discoveries, new challenges, and new opportunities to learn. The valley was alive, but it was also patient. It rewarded respect and cooperation, and it responded to the bond between human and alien, teacher and student, friend and friend. One afternoon, as they rested on a high ledge overlooking the valley, Elias spoke quietly. "You know, Lumi, this is more than exploration. It's a lesson for all of humanity. If we can learn to connect like this, to respect life beyond our own, we can thrive in ways we've never imagined." She blinked slowly, her soft glow pulsing in time with his words. He smiled, feeling a profound sense of purpose. The planet had given them more than energy or secrets. It had given them a path forward, a way to understand life beyond human boundaries. And Lumi had shown him that trust, respect, and curiosity were the keys to unlocking that path. As the sun set, casting violet and gold shadows across the valley, Elias and Lumi sat together, watching the patterns of light shift and pulse in harmony with the planet. He realized that this was the true reward. Not power, not knowledge, not conquest, but connection, partnership, and understanding. Lumi curled up in his lap, her glow dim but comforting. Elias rested his hands on her small shoulders, feeling the quiet bond between them. Together they had faced challenges, discovered wonders, and learned the most important lesson of all, that humanity's greatest achievements come not from domination, but from respect, empathy, and collaboration. Under the soft light of the crystals, amidst the living pulse of the valley, Elias whispered, "Tomorrow we continue together." Lumi hummed softly in response, her luminous eyes reflecting the gentle glow of the energy around them. And Elias knew that whatever the future held, new worlds, new challenges, or new discoveries, they would face it side by side, partners, equals, and friends. The valley pulsed gently with life, the crystals shimmering in harmony with the planet's heartbeat. And as night fell, Elias closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of Lumi curled in his lap, the quiet hum of the living planet beneath them, and the unshakable truth that the greatest adventures are shared, not conquered. Humanity had reached this world, but it was the bond with Lumi and the respect for life that had allowed them to truly understand it. And in that understanding lay the hope for every adventure yet to come.